Well, you guys ready to get started?
Let's get started. Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and we appreciate you joining us. This is Central Valley Real Estate Market number 3, and we have a special guest today, and we're gonna hear from here shortly. We have lots of great items to discuss. I'll be monitoring Zoom and Facebook Live for your questions. I just want you to know that I'll be looking away from the camera from time to time, and I'm just monitoring those questions that we're going to have for the group and for our guests. Let me get to the introductions. Andy and Daniel Del Real from the Del Real Group of PMZ Real Estate. Andy has been in real estate for 14 years. Daniel has been in real estate agents. And in the last 12 months, they have sold 269 homes, nearly 90 million in volume. Aaron West, the West experience of PMZ Real Estate. He's been selling real estate for 15 years. And Aaron has 3 buyer's agents, 1 listing agent, and 3 admin staff. And in the last 12 months, his team has sold 122 homes. So between the West experience and the Del Real Group, they've sold nearly 400 homes in the last 12 months. So that's a lots of experience. And our other guest, Sondra Yates, who's been doing loans for 22 years. In the last 12 months, she has done 162 loans, 43 million in volume, and that's a heck of a lot of loans. My name is Balsbaugh. I serve as president of the residential division of PMZ Real Estate. This is my 20th year in real estate, and we have over 600 agents here in the Northern California area. So before we get to our guests, I'm going to kick it off to Daniel, and he's going to give you a real estate market update on what we've been seeing since our last update. Daniel?
Hey, thanks, Ben. All right. So last session, we talked about the Sacramento and Stanislaus County, San Joaquin County real estate market and inventory trends. And some of the questions that we were getting are, months of inventory. That's a lot of the fear, and the conversation we're going to have with Kristin as well is how quickly can we get our people back to work, because of course unemployment is going to have an effect on inventory. So we looked at the current inventory trend level. So I'm going to bring up a graph here. Not sure if you could see this inventory. That's a lot of.
Yeah, we could see it.
Can you see it? Are you able to see this graph?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Sorry, we had a couple of windows that pop up. So Sacramento, starting with Sacramento County. So what inventory levels are is if there was no other listing listed on the market from today on, how soon would we run out of inventory given the current absorption rate? How many homes are going pending every single month? So the current inventory level right now, if we look at today's, say in Sacramento County, you're looking at about less than 2 months of inventory level. A normal market, Aaron, you have the numbers on that, but I believe it's 4 to 5 months of inventory, correct?
Aaron's muted, but yes, that is correct, Daniel.
And then, so I'm going to go down and look at even San Joaquin County. San Joaquin County is sitting at about 2 months of inventory. And then Stanislaus County is sitting at a little less than 2 months of inventory. So that's the current inventory level. A normal market's about 5 months of inventory. So if we go back and look at the housing correction, just to kind of answer some of the questions on what's the difference between the 2008 crash and are we feeling something like that now? I wanted to kind of address that. So if I stay in Stanislaus County right now and I go back to our trend report and I go back 15 years on a quarterly report, this is going to show you a bit more of the spike of inventory that we received whenever we got that correction. So this, if you notice the spike here, where we were almost up to 20 months of inventory compared to where we're at right now, which is at 2 months of inventory right here. So to answer the question, we have not seen that spike. Now, there's a potential of a possible slowdown depending on how quickly everybody gets back to work, Q3 and 4, and that's why we're going to continue doing these calls to monitor real time what that inventory looks like. So if we start seeing a change in that, you guys are going to be the first to know being on a call like this. If we go and look at Sacramento County, you see that it's very similar chart. Big spike, big difference between what we felt and what we saw in 06 through 08 compared to what we're seeing now. And then San Joaquin County, you see that mirrored as well. So inventory has increased slightly in the last month, and I'll show that right now. So let me go here and doing your chart. So what does 2 months of inventory look like number wise? So that's 646 listings on the market in Stanislaus County. There's 342 pending sales. That's where you get that 2 months, and 344 sold properties. So that's what our current inventory looks like right now. I think Aaron has information on.
Daniel, can you go back to that and pull that back up?
Sure.
Because one of the statistics that I found very interesting on this is if you go back to February and March and April of last year, the number of homes was dramatically higher than it is today. So we're certainly not seeing a spike in homes. It's increased, but the number of homes that it's increased is what, 47 homes, and we had an increase of 27 homes. So you're really not talking about a dramatic increase in the number of homes on the market right now as well, which I think will change as we start to see us opening up, which we'll talk to Kristin about a little bit as well. Okay, Daniel, I can take over now for just a quick second. So, you know, a lot of people were wondering if this is what the market looks like everywhere. So I reached out to one of the top agents in San Diego, and she was able to put together kind of the same sheet. Let me share this, showing February through May of 2008. And as you can see, they peaked at almost 20,000 homes, 1,669 homes on the market. And what they are looking at right now is 5,000 homes on the market. And they've kind of seen the same kind of trend where December, January, February, they were at their lowest inventory everywhere. And in talking to her, one of the things that she said as well, and what we're really starting to see is we're starting to see an uptick as the government and as the county have started to show that they're willing to relax a little bit, and people aren't moving so much from fear. We're starting to see an uptick in activity in showings and properties that we're putting pending, and I think that's a trend that's going to continue as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. Let's bring in our guest, because I know there's going to be lots of questions for her. We have questions for her. It is Kristin Olsen. She's the County Supervisor of District 1, and her accolades go on. And I know most of you are familiar with her, but some brief comments about Kristin. She was born and raised here in Stanislaus County, graduated from Modesto High School. She was elected to the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors in June of 2016 and began her term in January 2017. After representing Stanislaus and San Joaquin counties in the California State Assembly since 2010. So Kristin, we're very pleased to have you join us today, and we really appreciate you taking the time. We know you got a lot on your plate. Let's start with you. I think you probably just have some things you want to chat with us about, maybe give us an update on the county in regards to our current pandemic, and then we'll get into some questions.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Ben. Hi, everybody. I'll just be really brief in this overview so that we can spend as much time as you need on answering your specific questions. So as we all well know by now, COVID-19 has been named a pandemic, and it truly is. This is something we're working on literally every day. I'm in meetings from about 2:30 to 5 every day, standard meetings on the issue, and then additional ones as needed. Our numbers, we've been tracking our data points. There are a number of different metrics we track to see how we're doing as a community. And the goal all along has been to make sure that we have the resources to be able to accommodate a surge in COVID-19 patients. And so the good news is we have been able to identify that we have sufficient bed capacity, staffing, ventilators, et cetera, PPE, through a lot of hard work over the last 6 to 8 weeks. We feel that we're in a really good place. We actually have record low hospital numbers right now. And so we believe it is time that we begin, and we did begin about a week ago, but we believe now it's time to open even further some aspects of our local economy because those metrics have been met. And so we are working at feverish paces to figure out what that could look like. And it's been an evolving situation this week, not only by the day, but by the hour, because the information we've been receiving from the state keeps changing. So today we finally received written guidance to help inform those reopening decisions. And now we're having to evaluate how we score on those metrics and how we may be able to move forward. And so those are going to be conversations that we're having throughout the weekend, because unfortunately, while we meet the vast majority of the criteria that's been laid out, there are 1 or 2 data points that frankly, no county in California is going to be able to meet, other than the very tiniest of the tiny. And so we are concerned about that. And it seems to be, according to our public health officer, an effort to make sure that the state is moving together so that the state can say there's local ability to move more quickly, but that in reality, at least according to these metrics, that's not the case. The one I can point you to that came out this afternoon, that's the most troubling, is that a county can have 0 deaths in the last 14 days in order to move forward. And while certainly every death in this situation is tragic, it's a family who lost a loved one, and that is never a good thing. It is not really a good measure of whether we can accommodate the COVID-19 situation in our county. So we're evaluating how we respond to that, how we continue to collaborate or not with the state as we move forward on reopening decisions. Our goal has been to open not everything, but as much as we safely can by or before May 18th, including things like restaurants at certain capacity levels. That's still all being discussed, maybe 50%, as well as a number of other facilities and activities. So we're still aiming for that goal. It became more difficult today, but we're still working on finding ways that are data-driven based on medical science to be able to move forward and meet that timeline. Happy to address challenges that we're facing economically as well. Obviously, this is a public health crisis, but it is also an economic crisis. It was announced today that the state is facing a $54.3 billion deficit. That's on the heels of what was a $5.6 billion surplus. So the tables have turned significantly. Locally here in the county, property tax-wise, we're actually doing really well, even better than last year. We're not sure that will hold with the November tax deadline, but at least for the April one, our numbers are looking really good. Our housing market, which you all would know better than us, but our housing market has been not bad so far. So we're tracking that closely. Our greater concern is in sales tax, and the drop in sales tax revenue has been enormous at the local level and across the state, which has contributed to this state deficit. We are anticipating that in Stanislaus County, our unemployment numbers are somewhere between 18 and 30%.
That was one of our questions.
Yeah, and so we have launched a business services branch of our emergency operations center that they can be reached Monday through Friday at 211, and they are connecting people to workforce training opportunities, to state and federal, sometimes local monetary assistance, as well as to available job openings. So that provides a general overview, but I'm happy to drill down into any questions that I might be able to answer.
So this Friday, curbside retail, dog groomers, and drive-in movies, correct?
Yes.
One of my serious questions is I don't understand why my dog can get a haircut before me.
That has been a consistent question, and I'll tell you who's asked it the most is Jody Hayes, the CEO of the county, who is—
Yeah, of course.
Right. I think it's funny that the question keeps coming from Jody. And you know, at first I didn't understand it either, but I kind of do now when Dr. V's explained it. The challenge with hair salons, although there are many of us who are still trying to open them very soon under, you know, strict social distancing, sanitation, and PPE protocols. But the challenge is the social distancing part is basically impossible when it comes to a hair salon. And even if you only have one person in the salon or the barbershop at a time, it's still prolonged physical contact with somebody who's completely outside your social network, which is just not ideal. So we're still trying to find ways to move there, because at some point you have to achieve balance. But that is the reason they were treated differently than dog groomers, where there is no human-to-human contact. And Governor Newsom would suggest we are out of compliance even with the dog groomers.
I'm going to let the people on here ask you some questions, but one question we just received, and I have it written down to ask you anyway, is is the county following the governor's orders verbatim, or are you guys kind of making your own decisions based on what health directors?
Yeah, thus far, we have done our best to follow them with some caveats, and you'll see these caveats in every county across the state, all 58. And in many instances, we didn't even really know we were out of compliance. It's been a difficult thing because there's been so much gray area in the governor's statewide order. And so that's why people find, counties doing different things, because they're interpreting the order differently. So all we knew is there were other counties surrounding us that were allowing pet grooming. So we decided to allow the same. We didn't see it spoken to in the governor's order. And then today, when much more detailed plans come out, we see that's not until his phase 3 or something. So it's not that we intentionally went rogue when it comes to pet grooming or car washes. He has car washes in phase 3. We really thought we were interpreting the order to the best of our ability in a way that made sense based on guidance from our public health officer. So moving forward, we're evaluating whether we are going to try to continue to remain in compliance or whether we are in part going to go our own way.
And that really kind of led into exactly what you said, led into a question, because the statistics and the numbers have to play a big part in the opening up or the closing up, and every county is so different. And is California as a whole, are they keeping those guidelines in places for LA, which has a much higher rate than we do and a much higher death rate than we do per 100,000? And is there a way to, with the individual counties, for you to make some of these decisions by yourself without going totally against California, but at the same time factoring in where we are in comparison to them?
That is what we were hoping to receive guidance on today, that would allow for more of that local decision making, recognizing that we're not Modoc County or Mariposa County, but we're a far cry from LA County as well. And we should be able to make decisions accordingly based on what's safe for our community, what's in the best interest of our public health, our public safety, and our economy. Unfortunately, what came out today does not appear to give us the ability to make those decisions. It appears to only give very small counties who have very small numbers and virtually no deaths the ability to make those decisions. And it puts everybody else into a box where it appears we would all have to move at the same time. And so that's why, as of today, we are evaluating, and we started getting word last night that this might be happening. And so we actually started our work last night to evaluate what our options might be if we decide to make decisions based on our local data and medical science and what our public health officer thinks is in our best interest. That might put us at odds with where the governor is going. So we're evaluating our legal options in that regard.
Sondra, I think you had a question regarding schools.
Yeah, one of our questions. Hi, Kristin. I know you have kids too. I'm sure you love homeschooling. Yeah, as much as I do. But some of us are wondering, he also talked about maybe opening schools early in July. Is that a potential thing that's still on the table, or what do you know about that?
Not in Stanislaus County. In fact, our school superintendents and our county superintendent they did not have the most polite words to say when Governor Newsom said that at a news conference. Mm-hmm. Nobody in the school communities across the state was given advance notice of that. They were all taken off guard. And at this point, our local school superintendents have said there's just no way that they can be prepared to open schools that soon. And they're less concerned about it because our schools open a lot earlier than some other districts anyway, since we open, I think it's the first or second week of August. Mm-hmm. So they are not planning on opening up early. They're still planning on sticking to that, I want to say it's around August 10th date.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Andy.
Regarding the dog groomers, is there a protocol or any certain procedures that you guys are giving to dog grooming places to follow? I know when I reached out, because I do have a few furry babies that definitely are in need of some grooming. and they were still kind of unsure of how it's all going to kind of play out, what steps they need to follow, certain, procedure. Can you share any light on that?
Yeah, that's good to know. They should, I haven't verified myself, so it reminds me I need to go do that today, but they should have been posted online on our stanemergency.com website. If people go to stanemergency.com and click on the coronavirus visual, then that will be take them to the page that lays out the orders. On that page, there should be specific guidance on there for the dog groomers. So again, I will verify that that's on there. If not, we'll need to get that up right away, but I believe it was posted on Wednesday morning. And it's pretty detailed information about the rules that they need to follow.
Kristin, if maybe you could speak on this for just a minute, because I think a couple of us listened to the Stanislaus County Board meeting that happened, was it Tuesday, just a few days ago? And one of the things that they had was the updated website for Stanislaus County. And I know with the hospital beds, and I can actually pull this up because I just got online and did it for you to kind of go over that. Can you talk about, it seems like there's a fine line with opening up the county or opening up any area, with the concern being that the hospitals get overwhelmed. I think that's the whole purpose of opening this up in a slow manner. So I can share this screen, and then you can talk about kind of what the hospital situation is right now for Stanislaus County. So this is the current Stanco hospital data dashboard. You've seen that, I'm sure, probably 100 times already.
Yes, thank you, Erin. So this is the dashboard, one of, as you can see, about 5 tabs. We just added the neighborhoods tab for the first time yesterday morning. And each week we look at how we can improve the display. So every week you'll see either new data points or displayed a little differently to improve its readability. And again, the new one this week was being able to report by zip code in that neighborhoods tab. But for here, hospitalizations, we think this one's really important, because the goal that was laid out when all this started was that we need to flatten the curve to make sure that we're not exceeding the available capacity within our hospitals. And if we show modeling where we might do that, then we needed to stand up temporary alternative facilities. So this shows that we're actually in a really good place, but it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm not sure if they've added some of the caveats yet to the dashboard, but I'll explain them. So the 92 number, 92 reflects the number of Stanislaus County residents who have been hospitalized at any time since this pandemic started, since of known COVID-19 cases. So that does not mean we have 92 people in the hospital today. Most of those have already been released, but at some time, if the cumulative number of everybody who's been hospitalized is 92. The 40 number is the total number of patients who are in hospitals today, but that number includes people from out of county. So the 92 are only Stanislaus County residents, but the only way we can get the daily numbers is from hospital reports, and they don't delineate between Stanislaus County residents or not. So for example, many of our hospital systems have hospitals in other counties. Let's take Kaiser, for example. So Kaiser may take a patient who lives in San Joaquin County and put him in Modesto's hospital. So that number 40 would include those patients. Then we break it down between who is an ICU patient and who is not. It's the ICU capacity that is particularly important. And this is showing that today we have only 3 people in ICU, possibly four. The 10 and the 1 are suspected. I have asked probably every day for the last 8 weeks why we report suspecteds, and I'm still not clear on what the answer is, but it's just what we do. But we know for sure there are 26 people in non-ICU beds today and 3 in ICU beds. And then beyond that, we track the number of available ventilators, the percentage available ICU beds, total beds, and you can see we're in a really good position. At the same time, we track 4 different models showing our curve. Only one of those models now still shows us going above the 600 beds. So there are 1,200 licensed hospital beds in Stanislaus County. We estimate that at any given time, about half of those will be filled with non-COVID-19 patients. So because of that, we estimate that we have about 600 beds available on any given day for COVID-19 patients, which is how we get to that 54% number. So as you can see, with 40 people in the hospital, we could accommodate a lot more patients before we're in a position where we would have to stand up a temporary facility like the old Scenic hospital.
But that's something that you guys have a contingency plan. If that were to happen, we have the capability to handle more if that happened, correct?
We do. So we've announced that we'll open the old Scenic hospital to accommodate a surge beyond 600 beds that the hospitals could accommodate if we need to. And in fact, we've already moved beds into that facility. They're empty. It's not staffed right now, but we could turn that on in a day if we needed to. Beyond that, we've identified additional locations throughout the county that we could turn into an alternate site. We don't have beds in those other locations yet because we think the odds of us needing to use them are pretty low, but we have identified other sites that we could turn into an alternative care site if needed.
You know, and a follow-up question to that really would be, you know, one of the things that we are starting to hear now is that the hospitals are so, I don't want to use the word overstaffed, but their regular staff is the hospital itself doesn't have very many people on it. So at what point do they start being able to do elective surgeries and those kinds of things? Because I know that all just cut to zero, but at some point that needs to start happening. Has there been a conversation with the county or the state as far as when they're going to be able to start doing those things?
There has been, and you're right. This is a very difficult economic situation for hospitals right now too, as well as their workers. I'm hearing stories over and over again about nurses being asked if they want to go home early and not complete their shift, et cetera, because there just isn't enough work in the hospitals right now. And I think the hospitals, and I haven't looked at which one, but there's a $1 billion request into the state of California right now to make hospitals solvent. So this is a real economic crisis hitting them as well. About a week ago, I think it was about a week ago, Governor Newsom did announce that from a state order perspective, that hospitals are allowed to do elective surgeries again. And from a local perspective, they are as well. But now it comes down to their own private hospital systems and their licensing boards as to how quickly they can move forward in doing those, because they do have to show that they have sufficient PPE in order to still accommodate what might be a surge in COVID-19 while they're doing elective services. So I think they have slowly begun to do those in our community. I get a lot of questions, all of us get a lot of questions about PPE supply in the hospitals. And this has been a tricky issue because the hospital's communication to us at the EOC is that we are meeting all of their PPE requests. All of their PPE needs we have been able to fulfill through EOC supplies, that stands for Emergency Operations Center supplies. But then out in the community, I know a lot of our state electeds, federal electeds, mayors, myself, will hear from nurses and doctors that they don't have sufficient PPE. And so we've been trying to figure out where is this disconnect, and it seems to be within the hospital system itself, because we have confirmed on numerous occasions now that we are fulfilling all their requests. So we're trying to figure that out, but at this point, those are private hospital decisions, not state or local government decisions.
In addition to here, we've been having nearly 100 on our Facebook Live, and this you kind of touched on this, but we're jumping around a little bit. But one of the questions was, Kristin, have you guys discussed the idea of year-round school schedules, and so kids can get caught up?
We have not, as a county, we've really been deferring to the school districts and the county of superintendents to make those decisions. I know right now in real time this week, the county superintendent of schools and Dr. V, our local public health officer, are in conversations to provide some guidance for what school graduations could look like, for possibly what schools in the fall could look like. But for the most part, those decisions are being made by local districts. I have heard Sarah Noguchi speak to the fact that they're really hoping and waiting for more guidance from the state on what social distancing in a school setting looks like. Nobody seems to really know. But year-round school is one of the ideas I've heard thrown out there so that they could put students on different tracks and lower the number of kids in classrooms. I know the schools are expecting some kids to not re-enroll and permanently homeschool. My kids will not be one of them. That's been the
Mine
hard
either.
thing.
Mine either.
All of this, but they are expecting some reduction in enrollment because of that. And then I've heard some of them talk about maybe kids will go to school 3 days a week and do online school 2 days a week, but they really are at a loss right now on how they're going to do it, from what I understand.
What other questions you guys have?
Going back to the numbers for the county that you shared with us, Kristin, can you share how we compare versus other counties surrounding us and, you know, throughout the state of California?
Yeah. So if you remove our numbers, thank you, Aaron. If you remove our numbers that are associated with the skilled nursing facility in Turlock, then our numbers are pretty low. And most county numbers are pretty low. Gosh, I wish I had refreshed my memory on exactly where we lie, but we're in a pretty good place. We're nowhere near where places like Santa Clara County, San Francisco County, LA County, San Diego County have been. Our numbers look higher, still nowhere near those counties I just named, but our numbers are higher when you add the skilled nursing facility. And I'll try to explain why we try to back out those numbers. And by next week, I don't know exactly how we're going to display it yet. We're probably going to have an asterisk next to the 461 to show how many of those are related to what we call SNFs, skilled nursing facility. Isn't that how they do it in sports? They'll like asterisk it if it's a real number or something like that. So we're going to do something like that. And the reason is Dr. V would tell us that if our concern in what we're tracking is community transmission, how is this spreading through the community? Then the skilled nursing facility numbers as it relates to the positive cases and the number of deaths aren't really an accurate reflection of that because they're fairly contained and isolated to people within the facility. And so it is not a good measure of what our community spread is. And in our death rate, for example, I believe only 7 or 8, it's hard to keep track of the numbers. I think 7 or 8 of those are unrelated to the skilled nursing facility. All of the rest of them, sadly, are related to that Turlock nursing home.
Well, if you look at the statistics there, it's 81% are 65 and older. So that would leave 4 or 5 that would not be that. And I think that was the number that was, I think it was 5 before the skilled nursing facility came out. So that would make sense.
It was 5 and either 2 or 3 since then are unrelated to TNR.
So given those numbers, like how open is the county willing to like go into that gray area and open up our county a bit more?
That depends on who you ask. If you ask me, and I would venture to say the vast majority of the Board of Supervisors, if not the unanimous opinion of the Board of Supervisors, we would go pretty far. I don't think we're at the point where we can allow for large gatherings of people again. I think that is still problematic. There was recently a gathering of 50 more people unauthorized, and we have 14 people now who have tested positive as a result of that gathering, 14 of the 50, and the rest of them are quarantined. So we're not in a good situation to be able to allow even semi-large gatherings. But when it comes to opening businesses, be they hair salons, retail on the inside, not just curbside, gyms, you know, I wouldn't open movie theaters yet. I think that's problematic. But a lot of these businesses, it would be fairly easy to accommodate social distancing. And I continue to be disturbed by so many of these essential services compared to non-essential services that just flunk the logic test, right? There's no reason I should be able to shop inside of a Target and buy a TV, and I can't shop at a local electronics store and buy a TV, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And arguably you could practice greater social distancing at a local small business and control the flow of customers a little bit better. So I think most of us, and I know virtually all, not quite all, but virtually all of the mayors are there or beyond, would open most establishments, most business and activities within the next 2 weeks under strict social distancing, sanitation, and PPE protocols.
So let's talk about that, because how are we compared to some of the counties nearby? Like, how are we comparing to them? And I know that I've heard the Good to Go initiative that you guys are doing as well. Tell us a little bit about that. And I think we're one of the few counties that are actually piloting or talking about that, right?
Yes, I'm so proud of our business community. We've had 21 business leaders come together to write plans. I want to say there's 16, 17, 18 different sectors that have plans on how they could safely reopen. And we're putting it into a document called Good to Go. The purpose of that document may be changing. Initially, our plan was to provide it to the business owners so they know under what standards they will have to comply with to open, and also to consumers so they can have some level of comfort of visiting a safe business and understanding what protocols they're following. Today, actually, I think it was announced on Tuesday, the state has decided to provide those guidelines for all sectors, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I actually think it makes a lot of sense if the standards for restaurants in Stanislaus County are the same as they are in San Joaquin County and Kern County, right? I mean, it makes sense to not have 58 different sets of rules. We just wish it had come out a couple weeks ago because it's frustrating for those who have spent so much time working on these plans. So now that group is still working on these because we may need them. The governor's only released a few of them so far. So particularly if we go forward with some of these more quickly than he does, we will still need these plans. But even if, let's say, he provides all of the plans tomorrow, we see potential use for these from a marketing perspective. And I talked with some restaurateurs, for example, today, who are thinking maybe these could be the floor. And then they have these Good to Go plans that go beyond the floor, and businesses could advertise that they're extra safe, right? Or something like that to give some consumers confidence. So that's how they may be translating the Good to Go document in light of what is coming up from the governor.
And you guys will be addressing this in your next Tuesday meeting, right? That's a big meeting for us, right?
It is a big meeting for us. We announced this Tuesday and on Facebook Live last night that this next Tuesday, May 12th, we're going to bring a comprehensive reopening plan to the board for adoption. When we first said that, we thought that was going to be consistent with what the state was allowing us to do, that we could self-certify we've met the metrics and therefore move forward with a plan, particularly for finishing phase 2, which includes restaurants and other things. That's a little different now, so we're having to modify whether we're going to have to scale back that plan or whether we're going to keep it the same and then provide justifications on how we meet all the metrics, and if there's one or two that we don't meet, provide our own public health-based justification for why we should be allowed to move forward with it anyway. But we do still plan to bring something forward on the 12th.
So on the 12th, for anybody, we had a couple hundred people register for the call. We're going to send out the recording, and what we'll do is we'll send out the link where you could tune into that meeting.
That would be great. Thank you. Yes, that would be great.
So your best guess as far as us, going into a restaurant and having a bite is May 18th with some restrictions?
So yesterday morning, I would have told you by or before May 18th. And I think many restaurants would prefer to see that on the 15th on a Friday night rather than a Monday night. Just makes a lot more sense for the restaurant industry. And 2 days ago, I would have told you, I think the likelihood of that is high. Now I'm giving that a little bit more pause based on everything we learned from the state today. I still think the odds are better than not that happens, but I have less confidence in it than I had 2 days ago.
I think the goal is just to get everybody back to work. I mean, we love our restaurants, we love our community, and the devastation that we're seeing with unemployment numbers from, we're talking about 18 to 30%. Like, have you guys been talking about when the dust settles, what our unemployment is actually going to be like, and what the county is doing to help with that?
Yeah, we're gravely concerned about it. As I had said, we're anticipating our unemployment rate in our county is somewhere between 18 and 30% when this all shakes out, which are record high numbers. I mean, that's much higher than even Great Depression days and certainly higher than 08, 09. So we're very concerned about that. Our workforce development department is actively trying to help connect people to resources, to training, to opportunities, to jobs. This effort, I think, is going to grow, as we move more into a reopening phase. And this is not unique to the private sector. The public sector, I think, is going to face very similar situations. These are really difficult times when it comes to revenue loss. And we're anticipating a lot of really hard decisions are going to have to be made over the coming year.
So, I know that there are people that are hiring. I know Gallo is hiring. There are people that are hiring because they have to be prepared for whatever scenario happens. What if someone is hiring, where would they go? If someone is looking for a job, where would they go? And I think we're running a little bit short on time. So okay. I have another couple of questions too. So what would your advice be for that?
Sure, I'll be quick on this. I would say call 211, or another way to reach the same people are 558-4793. If you call 211, ask for the business services branch, and they have a list of all available job openings. And so that would probably be the best way I would address that.
And if somebody were looking to hire someone, would they just reach out to the same and say, hey, we're looking?
Yes, I would suggest that they also reach out to those numbers so they can be added to a list. We're looking for people to do that so we can best connect people.
Okay.
I think guys, real quick, last numbers I saw in New York, 126 deaths for every 100,000 people. California, 6 for every 100,000. Here in the county, 3 for every 100,000. I don't envy you this, and I don't know how to ask this properly, but where do you weigh like the such low death rate here versus jobs and
right.
getting the economy going? I guess is hard to wrestle from. It's hard for me to wrap my head around.
It's very hard for me to wrap my head around too. Ask Supervisor Withrow about it and you'll see him go through the roof. So yeah, it's a really difficult situation. And there's real suffering right now associated with income loss and job loss, real suffering. And I keep reminding people, poverty costs lives too. And so we're trying to weigh all of those different decisions, but it's been a challenging situation as most of our local decision-making authority has been.
And that kind of leads into my next question, which I think is for all the panelists as well, is that, I've been reaching out to a lot of clients and people checking in and seeing how they're doing. I know that Daniel and Sondra have been doing that as well. And you mentioned mental health. And so for you guys on the panel and for you too, Kristin, what are you doing to stay sane? Because in every challenge, there's an opportunity. It may be that financially you're experiencing a challenge, but is there an opportunity for you to reach out to someone and revisit some relationships that you have missed out on? Or is there an opportunity to get healthy so that when you have the opportunity to go back to work, you're in a fit place and your brain is in a healthy place? So what is it that you guys are doing or that you've found to be successful to help you get through this personally?
Responsible wine drinking with my neighbors.
Get apart, Ben.
I'm on my way over, Ben.
I talked about mine. I'm taking a Yale course right now on the science of well-being, and it's just I'm taking an opportunity to be able just to kind of, sharpen that part of my life. And I know Yale is one of Yale's most popular courses that they have, and they're offering it for free. We'll send a link out of that as well whenever we send out the recording. But and it just helps for this time. It's like perfect timing. The science of well-being. It's a Yale course. That's what I'm doing.
I think for most people, if you can just keep as much normalcy within the confines of your home or your office. My kids joked a couple weeks ago, they're like, Mom, you put on makeup to walk downstairs. I was like, yes, I did. But keeping your systems, getting up on the regular schedule, it helps your kids on scheduling too. Just like keeping those normal, healthy habits, I feel like allows you to know what day of the week it is, what time is it, just, keeping your mind sharp and on point.
That's one of the biggest struggles is keeping routines, and routines are so important.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, what about you, Andy?
Same thing. I think a little bit of what everybody kind of mentioned, keeping the routine, waking up early, trying to get some exercise in to keep the mental state as strong as possible. My dogs are loving it. I'm taking them out on walks a little bit more, so spending a little quality time with them. But at the same time, fine tuning my budget, because of this pandemic and the personal finances, where it's gonna kind of take a little bit of a toll. I'm trying to see what areas I can cut back in. Whether that means, eliminating the DirecTV bill, which I have done, and figuring out different ways that I could do it, just to prepare myself for the future as well, too. Trying to support local and ordering food out, instead of having it delivered to the house. I decided to get up and, go and pick it up just to get out of the house for a little bit as well, too. So little things that I'm doing.
I'd like to share something real fast. Let me make my screen bigger again. One of the things that we kind of started doing is just trying to set some goals. So this is just a little sheet that we'll be happy to provide as well. That's just a 90-day goal. And in January, 90 days was like tomorrow, but it seems for a lot of people planning 90 days out right now is a big deal. But if you can take a couple of minutes and go through and write some things that you want to accomplish. And if it's not 90 days, maybe it's 10 days or 7 days to where you can say, I'm going to go to church, or I'm going to reach out to 2 family members, whatever it looks like for you to be able to accomplish something, because your brain does amazing things when you feel like you're accomplishing something. And in that financial thing, we were talking about this earlier a little bit. One of the things that causes a lot of uncertainty is the unknown. And I think that was one of the reasons why there was such a deep and, with how everything went down with coronavirus, was because so much of it was unknown. And with people's finances, a lot of what they deal with is unknown. They lose their job and they just don't know how much money they spent. And so one of the things that I would suggest is figuring out what it costs to live, and if you went through your last 12 months of bank statements and just averaged how much you spent over 12 months, that's how much you spend every month. And then if you're able to cut back from that I did the same thing. I mean, I cut back I ordered an antenna for TV because we cut back on DirecTV. So, those are the things that I found to help a bunch.
Right.
Awesome. We'll share that as well.
We have Mother's Day coming up, Kristin, and we have a question. Happy early Mother's Day to you. One of the questions is what's your opinion on, just family gatherings for Mother's Day? Do you view that as?
This is such a hard one, and it's a hard one. So the technical answer, the right answer, is stay within your household unit, right? So for me, that should be me and my 3 kids. I will tell you, and my sisters and I, we did this on Easter, and I'm planning on doing it again on Mother's Day. My parents, they've been at home for, I think, 8 or 9 weeks, and they literally went nowhere until Easter. And what we did, and they've agreed to do it on Mother's Day too, is we host a lunch in the backyard. This Sunday it's going to be at my house. Last time it was at my sister's house, but in the backyard. And we've sat each of our families, 6 to 10 feet apart from each other, which according to our local order is appropriate. We have accommodated and allowed for outdoor activities largely because of the mental health issues and the importance of that, like you were talking about, Aaron. So we believe we're in compliance with the spirit of the order because we are practicing that social distancing. We're not having all of our extended family members over, but our immediate family, my 2 sisters' family and my parents, we're doing that. And we think that's important for each other to be able to gather like that.
That's good.
Well, I want to take a quick moment just to thank Kristin. I know that as being elected, it must be really, really tough for you to answer the same questions over and over again and not give everybody the answer that they want. And I know your hands are tied behind your back a bit and you're going to fight for us on Tuesday. So we look forward to tuning in, but I just want to say thank you for doing that. And I know you probably don't get that as much right now because everybody's looking at you guys like the mean people, but I do appreciate it. And as much as we could dance in the gray, I know the whole county would appreciate it as well.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks, guys.
That is
We
true.
appreciate you, Kristin, very much for joining us today, and go spend time with your family tonight.
You got it. You guys too. Have a good night.
Kristin,
Good night.
before you end this, Kristin, one quick thing. If there was one thing that you could tell people right now, what would it be?
Take time to take care of yourselves. That's really what I would say. The mental and emotional impacts of this that I have witnessed have been pretty severe. So I would say, find a way to spread joy to the people around you and to find joy yourselves. It's amazing the little ways we can find that each day.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate you guys.
We're going to answer more. Are we going to answer more questions once Kristin gets off? Are we? Is there any other questions?
There's no more other questions that have come in.
I want to talk about the financing, the loans. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about loans, kind of what interest rates are looking like as well too?
Yeah, for Sondra. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Sure,
Yes.
no problem. I'm still here. It's okay. We were just talking, a lot of people are wondering what the market's doing in mortgages, because I know there's a lot of misinformation, out there. The average rate before COVID started, literally on the day the stay-home orders started, was 3.65. Today, the average 30-year loan is at 3.25. Of course, there's a lot of variables in there to get a particular rate, but the market is very, very good in terms of the time to look at a purchase or maybe a refinance to trim your budget, whatever you may qualify for. The rates have stayed incredibly low, and talks are that the government's going to maintain them at low levels.
That's amazing how low these rates are.
I know.
You had a forbearance example too, didn't you? I know we had a lot of thoughts and questions about forbearance last time.
Yeah, we do. Is Sean on the call? Would he have yes, he does.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. So I had a specific client that called me, so I thought this would be a good example. This may not be your particular scenario, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea. So I have a client whose mortgage payment was a little over $2,300 a month. Her particular lender offered her an initial 3-month forbearance. She didn't want to be at a complete deficit over those 3 months and pay no mortgage payment at all. So she elected she's going to be putting the money aside in her savings account. So because she's not completely out of work, but she has reduced hours. So that is one tip that I would encourage you. If you can put some money in savings, because even if you have reduced income, you're going to have some sort of cost of living. So for her goal is at the end of that 90-day period, if she can take that $3,000 instead of owing the whole deficit over the 3 months, she can afford likely at that time to have a much lower payment increase of about $255 at the end of that period of time to catch up on her lost payments. So that's her goal, is to keep aside in savings what she can afford so that when her hours return to work full time, she can then repay that deficit and then catch right back up on her loan.
I think this is such a great example. And I know we talked about, the forbearance, whether it's going to be in the back end or the front and when it's going to be due. I think the number at the bottom, the 2609, being their new payment, people that are taking forbearance and not, you're not forbade from county taxes. I mean, we just had Kristin on the call right now, or homeowners insurance. Like, there's going to be a shortage in your escrow account that is going to be adjusted. So whether you pay the principal and interest at the end of the loan, you are going to have a new payment. You have to ask yourself, is that going to be something that you're going to be okay with before you just take forbearance just because you think it's a freebie, right? It might create more issues than anything else. So if you're taking forbearance, we recommend that you do it only if you really need it.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to just talk for a minute too about, this is a little bit of a subject change. You guys have anything to add for Sondra or questions for her? Just because I know that there are a lot of agents out there right now that are on this call and listening to this call. And I know Daniel and Andy and I have all had people reach out to us and just talk about, what the value of these calls. And so I wanted to take just a minute and just kind of talk about what you guys are experiencing right now. I know we're trying to keep everything at an hour, but I know personally for us, the feeling of this market has started to change, and we're starting to see activity again, and we're starting to see traction. And so, you know, I don't know if you guys are feeling the same thing, but for the agents that are out there and that are listening to this call, it is now time, if you haven't been, to get out there and start working, because the buyers are out there. I know we have, I think we have 19 homes in escrow right now, and that's not an accident. It's because everybody's working really hard. And so this is a time for, and I don't know, what do you guys look like right now, Daniel?
I believe we're at 30, and we've had 21 new in the last 14 days pending sales, right? So people are out there. The biggest thing that we got to deal with is if somebody is, say, a hairstylist or has a business, or somebody that is temporarily laid off, is talking to the lender to see, okay, it might be a condition. We have a client right now, they're conditioned to go back to work. So as soon as they go back to work, then they could close escrow on the property. So instead of just not addressing that, it's important to ask those questions to the lenders and see, okay, what kind of conditions, what kind of changes are you making if somebody is temporarily off of work, but is expected to go fully back to work after the phase 2 or phase 3.
Yeah, or we even had one that returned to work at reduced hours, and those hours are guaranteed. After COVID, they're back to full-time. We could qualify with the reduced hours. So she was able to move forward to work for a dental office. So some of those different industries that you don't think about that are also shut down, like, you know, hygienists and some of the non, you know, what they've considered essential jobs, but absolutely, definitely just keep your lender posted.
And, you know, I really have the feeling that this market, that we're going to be busy this summer. You know, there's a lot of people who have a pent up need to move or want to move, or were planning on putting their home on the market over the next 3 months, and that have just put everything on hold. And as we start getting these directives from the county and the market starts to open up a little bit, they're going to be looking for someone to help them. And the same is true with buyers. Now that it looks like coming out of the crazy uncertainty and there's more of a probable outcome to this, those buyers are coming back out, and they're going to be coming back out. So if you're an agent that is working right now, it is the time to brush off your shoes and dust them off and get back out and start doing activity, because now is the time when you start doing the work to be rewarded in the next couple of months.
And if you're a seller or not a seller, but even a homeowner, right, that is maybe concerned with their financial future, reach out to your agent and get a checkup on value. Don't bury your head in the sand. Right now, there's a lot of equity. People have equity in their homes, so it's not the time to do that. Reach out and just get a checkup. Don't ignore the issue. So many people during the short sale phase that should have never lost homes, but did, just because they were too afraid to make a call.
And two, you know, if you're not considering selling right now, when was the last time you talked to your insurance agent to find out if this is truly the best insurance plan for you that you've had for 8 or 10 years, or your car insurance, or any of those things at all? Take a couple of minutes to shop those and just see what that looks like as well. If you're an agent, reach out to your database and make that offer to them. If you have an insurance guy that you know and trust, refer them to your clients. Look like the hero because you're looking out for them, and give them an opportunity to save some money and be the person that's top of mind for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll also add in there as well too, for the homeowners that you know, that have an existing mortgage, look at your interest rates right now. It might make financial sense to consider a refinance, and not necessarily restarting back at 30 years. One thing that I'm personally doing is I'm reviewing every single one of my mortgages and seeing where my interest rate at, and considering reducing the amount of years as well as the interest rate. You'd be surprised how often your payment could be pretty similar to where you're at now, or even dropping it down a little bit as well too. I mean, Sondra just, you know, mentioned a few moments ago, rates have dipped down almost half a point. I remember back in 2008 when I purchased a property, and I was ecstatic about having a 6.875%, which is where they were at the time, you know, just below 7. So the fact that we're seeing them in the 3s and getting closer and closer to 3 or high 2s, Never seen this in the history of real estate. So if you're a homeowner, consider possibly exploring the option of refinancing. And if you want to sit down with somebody and crunch the numbers, look at the 15-year option, the 20-year option, or resetting back at a 30-year option if it makes financial sense for you.
Yeah, reach out to Sondra. She can assist you. The last, we got to wrap this up, but Aaron, you mentioned something about, what can we be doing right now to get that pipeline going? And between the two of you, the two groups, Del Real and the West Experience, and then all Sondra's loans. You guys have done 45, 50 escrows in the last 2 weeks. So what's one thing that a loan officer or an agent could be doing right now to get that pipeline going?
Daniel?
Josh in our office said it. He's like, you could decide to be a greenhouse or a bunker. This is a perfect time for that. Be a greenhouse. Go out there, reach out to people. You could be socially responsible and still work, right? So that's the thing that I would say is like, be a greenhouse. Go out there, talk to your clients. Don't be afraid of that. Start making your calls. Start servicing the people that need your help. We just put up a video, a pretty funny video on our Facebook page that was just that. Look, we're not bunkering. We're a greenhouse. We're out. The clients need you right now. It's not the time to go hide. It's a time to be there for them when they need you, when they're scared, when they have questions. Buyers need servicing. So I would just say, be the greenhouse.
Awesome. Sondra, what advice would you give a loan officer?
Well, what I did from day one, I decided same thing. You can either let the environment control your emotion or take control of your emotions. So I started alphabetically and went all the way through all of our closed loans from last year and called or texted all of my clients. And it was amazing how many people hadn't heard from their closer sphere or other relatives. Like everybody, we think that somehow maybe it's just that person feels that way. And I think the isolation that it's created, you think that it's just you, but it's normal. You're normal if some days you feel like you conquered it all and the next day you barely got out of bed. It's okay. And I think just the relatability and that people know that you care and that they're cared for, whether they're elderly or single parents, or they just feel like they're kind of on a little island. And I think it's a perfect time to just remind everybody that we're all a community in this together.
I would say 5. Call 5 people tomorrow. Call 5 people tonight. Just get on your phone and start scrolling through your phone and just go, I'm going to talk to 5 people today. And I'm just going to ask them how things are going. I'm going to just be there. And as Daniel said so eloquently, be the greenhouse, but just reaching out to people. Think of it this way, if your dry cleaner called you out of the blue and said, hey, I just wanted to call and check in. I'm just calling all of our clients right now to make sure how they're doing. We appreciate you as a client and we can't wait to have you back when the time comes. You're going to be like, holy crap, that was the coolest phone call I've ever received, right? Well, we're the people that can do that for our clients. So it's just a matter of just picking up the phone and just checking in with them, and the business will come because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so 5 people, that would be my advice would be to anybody listening.
Thanks for the Zig Ziglar quote. That was great.
And I'll add a little something on there as well too. And this is going to be for homeowners. So anybody who's looking to consider selling their house in the near future, obviously, the new normal has changed. And so your chances are you're going to be reaching out to somebody who's done video tours like our group has done, the Del Rey group for the last decade, or, 3D tours like the West Experience has done as well too. So do your due diligence for agents. Brush up your skills. If you're not already, offering those services, educate yourself, figure out a way to do it. If finances is the issue, figure out a way to cut back on your personal finances so that you could spend the money to buy the equipment you need. A lot of times you could use it on your cell phone. For home buyers, if somebody's looking, renting right now and wanting to get out of renting, consider getting your finances in order and calling Sondra or calling your loan officer and reviewing your finances, being proactive instead of reactive when it comes to it.
Awesome.
And the last thing just to add on to him for buyers is you don't know how much you qualify for right now. You know, a 1% interest rate difference from when you checked last time is a 10% difference in what you qualify for. So, you know, reach out to a lender and just see where you're at right now. You might be surprised that you qualify for a lot more than you think you do.
Great.
But just caution on that a little bit there. One thing that I personally always recommend to everybody is have your budget ready to go. And I know I've mentioned this several times. You can go and you know, get pre-approved, and you can get pre-approved for a $500,000 house. A house is going to be beautiful, but is it within your budget? If it's not, you're going to find yourself in financial problems if we run into another pandemic, something like this here, where your hours get cut back and your loss of income happens. So,
Great.
you know, don't buy the biggest house because you can, you know, financially do it. Stay within your means.
Aaron, do you have any last things before I wrap this up? Because you like to add something afterwards. So.
Let me know. I'm done.
Okay.
If you can, we could wrap up with, make sure that people keep tuning into this, because if you see a spike in inventory, you're going to know about it. We're going to cover it. If we're delivering bad news, if we're getting bad news, we're going to deliver bad news, right? So kind of stay connected, stay informed, kind of stay with us, you know, in 2 weeks. If we do this again here in 2 weeks and the inventory increases, you're going to see it. So yeah, I think it's very important to stay informed, share it with a friend. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Sondra, Andy, Daniel, Aaron, you guys keep bringing it. And one thing that you guys should, everybody on this listening should have took note of, these 4 individuals are literally the most productive people in Stanislaus County, and they're all watching their budgets, fine-tuning things, DirecTV, that kind of stuff they're taking care of. And are you? So I just want to challenge you guys, as they did, just look at those budgets. Andy can post something, a link to a nice budget, and get that thing dialed in this week. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the time. Enjoy.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stopping in.